RoseGalah Suicide, and today I'm going to introduce you to my parrots and then also talk to you about basic care and tips that go along with having parrots. This on my shoulder is Coco. He's a green-winged macaw. He's probably about 15 or 16 years old now. He's kind of a big, gentle giant. He's a super nice bird. This one is Mowgli. He's an African gray parrot. He is super obsessed with pens, so because I have this pen sitting on the table, he's probably going to be trying to get it for the entire video. There's another little bird that's running around behind the camera and stuff. Her name is Ellie. She's a lorikeet, so if you see her pop in and out of frame, that's just because she's all over the place. There she is. To kind of start the video off, I wanted to first start with diet, since that's the most important. You want to make sure that you're feeding your bird 50% pellets, 25% seeds and nuts, and then the other 25% should be fresh fruits and vegetables. I personally feed a pellet that the brand Hagen makes. It's called Tropi Mix. It's got papaya and pineapple and nuts and seeds and stuff kind of like all mixed into it, so it's a little bit more interesting to eat versus eating the same boring pellet every single day. We do a lot of supplements with fresh stuff. They get They get breakfast and dinner every single day with either like noodles or, honestly, we've done pancakes. If we do pancakes in the morning, like they're getting pancakes with us. So they're pretty spoiled. They know when we're cooking and they're expecting some. So they all have their own individual spots when dinner time comes. There's another pellet that Harrison makes, and it's like an all-natural pellet. And if you can get your bird to eat it, then it's a great food. Mine personally just didn't like it, but that's because they've been on the Tropi Mix for years. And so we do try to switch it up. I add new pellets or new like dried fruit and nut mixes every time I make a mix. And I've got a lot of birds, so we've got a lot of different mixes that we use just to keep it interesting for them. Because you would get boring eating the same thing every single day. And so they are going to be the same way. And so we try to just keep it interesting for them, keep them healthy. That's the biggest part for us. There are some things that you should watch out for when you're feeding your birds. Avocados are the biggest. Avocados are super, super poisonous. If they get even a little fraction of it, your bird doesn't get vet care, it'll pass away in a couple days. It's kind of serious, so just watch out for avocados. They say to stay away from raw onions, so we just stay away from them totally. The pits from fruit, so if you do like apple seeds, orange seeds, cherry pits, any pit from a fruit that you don't eat, you don't want to feed it to your bird. It's also not good for them. The normals like chocolate, bubblegum, obviously don't feed that to your bird. If your dog can't, no animals really, chocolate's not good for any animals. And it's not going to kill them right away, but it does build up in their body and causes issues in the long run. So we just try to keep safe of those, but we do a lot of fruits, and we do birdie breads. We make a lot of stuff for them. The next thing is when it comes to like setup for your bird. It's super important to have an appropriate size cage, especially most people work 8 hours a day, 5 to 7 days a week, depending on your job, and they need to have a cage that's an appropriate size to be in for that amount of time. If you just put a bird into a small cage with no toys, like they're going to start chewing on their feathers, they're going to start having issues. It's just not healthy for them. Birds are not like a domesticated animal. You can't just like tame them like you can with a dog or a cat. Like, you earn their trust. And so birds are meant to be, their bodies are used to and built to be flying and foraging and, digging through stuff and finding foods. And so when you take a bird that's body is meant to be burning all this energy daily and they're not, that energy builds up into their system, and it can cause, them to lash out aggressively, or they just get kind of crazy. But so that's why it's important to have toys and the appropriate size cage for them to stay busy and to stay active and burn that energy off. You should have at least 5 different toys in their cage. We rotate through a couple new toys every like 2 to 3 weeks just to keep it interesting for them, give them something new. He gets so excited when we give him a new toy. He starts like doing his head back and forth, and he'll talk, and he'll give you kissy noises when you give him a new toy. So they really do enjoy it. Be careful when you're buying toys. Sometimes I buy off Amazon just because I have Prime and it's easy and it comes in a couple days. But not all their toys are like bird proof or like bird safe. I've gotten some toys where the beads were actually painted, and you don't want any kind of paint on your bird toys. You want them to be food colored dyed for like the blocks and everything. I wouldn't do anything that's painted. You have to also be careful with what kind of metal they're using. Zinc is super toxic to birds, so anything with zinc you're not allowed to use because they will get metal toxicity poisoning, and they can pass away from that. It's a pretty serious issue. And if you're gonna you can make your own bird toys. We make ours because we have so many birds that it's a lot cheaper money-wise just to sit down and cut some wood up and string it in, on a chain and hang it in the cage. But you have to be careful what kind of woods you're using because there's a huge list of woods that are toxic and ones that are safe. Manzanita's one that you see most likely used for bird toys, and that's just because it's a hardwood, so it's harder for like birds that are his size to destroy it, because he goes through like a $40 toy in like 2 days. But it's also easy to clean because it doesn't have like bark or anything on it, so it's just super nice. They use it for perches and everything. And leading to perches, your bird should have like one of each kind of perch. So there's rope perches, there's cement perches, and there's wood perches. People like cement perches because they help keep the nails down if your bird uses it right. The problem if you get all cement perches is it's kind of rough to stand on all day long. And so you can actually create wear marks on their feet. So it's super important to have something soft for them to stand on too, or even like have a swing in the cage. Just trying new things, seeing what they like. Every bird's a little bit differently. Like he likes the wood more stuff, but my cockatoo likes cardboard and more shreddable toys. So it's just important to figure out what kind of stuff that they like, and then go off of that. And not to buy the same exact toy every single time that you buy toys. Like switch it up. Like your kid does, you should be giving them something that keeps them interested and entertained. And if you buy them the same toy every single time, it's boring. So you really should just be switching it up and just trying to give them stuff to keep them entertained. Time spent with the birds, I try to spend, it's so hard because my days are different sometimes. Sometimes I feel bad because I only get to spend, an hour or so with them. And other times I get to spend the whole day with them. And so you should at least be trying to spend an hour with your bird every single day. And on the days that you have more time to spend, try to spend more with them. They're super, super social. My birds are super attached to me. The second I come home, they're screaming, they're flying to me because they want me. So it is important that you hold your bird every single day. And I don't know why anybody would get a bird and not want to hold their bird and spend time with them, especially when they see you as being part of the flock and being family. I don't know if you can hear Oliver, but he's over on the cage being part of the conversation, putting in his 2 cents. Yeah, Oliver. I'm sure you'll meet him later. I'll kind of try to bring in some of the birds throughout the video just so that people can see the different species and the different colors and everything like that. Grooming is a little bit different with birds versus dogs and cats. You don't really have to bathe them. Every now and then they'll bathe themselves. Like Coco will get in his water dish and he'll bathe himself. Mowgli likes to go in the shower with us, so I'll just douse him in the shower, but it really is only once a month. The thing with birds is you do want to try and trim their nails and their beaks when they get overgrown. You can kind of see on Coco that he has this whiter stuff on his beak, and that's an old part of his beak, just like with your fingernails, they can flake sometimes. That's what their beaks do, and so their beaks grow out and down. And so that's just old beak that will flake off eventually. Some people like to Dremel it off. I just think it's kind of a waste to Dremel it off unless there's a lot on there. You do want to use a fingernail file Dremel though when it comes to the nails and the beak, just dulling them off. They do have quicks, so you have to be careful on who you're letting trim your bird, because what happens with trimming is most people they'll get a towel, they'll towel the bird, and then they'll do the nails and the beak, because the birds, they don't like it. No bird likes getting their nails, their beak trimmed, but it is necessary for them to do it. So it's super, super important that you find somebody who knows what they're doing, whether that's an avian certified vet, and make sure they're avian certified. Just because they see birds doesn't mean they're avian certified or they know anything about birds. It's kind of hard to find an avian certified vet in my area anyway. I'm sure in some of the more bigger cities there's a lot more avian vets there. But the wings, I personally don't trim my birds' wings. Mowgli, stop chewing on it, please. He's gonna chew on the, on the camera. Just because there is risk with keeping your birds flighted. Obviously, you don't want them flying out the door or flying into a window or anything like that. Mowgli's the best flyer. The rest of mine don't fly very well. He doesn't fly at all. When he was a baby, I just taught him what a window was. So he is pretty good about knowing where the windows are in the house, and he hasn't hit a window since I think he hit one once when he was a baby, and then after that he learned pretty quick. But I think it's super important, Ellie, stop please, that they are able to burn that energy like I was talking about earlier in the video. They get a lot of energy that's built up, and when they can fly and use that energy, they're just happier. Like, Mowgli's a pretty happy boy, huh? Are you a happy boy? But he really relies on his flying, mainly to come to me, when wanted and when not wanted. He just kind of helps himself. But there are some birds who do abuse flying and do need their wings to be clipped. So I'm kind of stuck in the middle on whether you should keep your birds flighted or if you should trim them. I kind of see both sides of it. And it can be important to keep your birds clipped, especially if you take them outside. If you're taking your birds outside, obviously you should try to clip their wings. Again, just be super, super picky about who's trimming your bird, because there's a specific way to clip a bird's wings. You don't want to clip too much, like back, and you're just clipping the feathers, you're not actually clipping the skin, so it's not hurting them or anything. But it can be detrimental to them if like somebody takes too much off their wings and then they get scared and like fly off their cage and can't glide to the ground. If they just fall and hit the ground, they can actually break their back breastbone that runs right along the center of them, and that can be a serious issue. They can break it, or they can just like break the skin open. I've seen it happen before, and it's pretty horrible. So it's just really important to make sure that you have somebody who knows what they're doing. Trim your bird. Vet care though, and like I said, a lot of vets will do the trimming. So if you have a good avian certified vet, you probably just take him to the vet and have him do it. But for vet care for birds, there's not a lot of like, they don't need like checkups. There's no like vaccinations or shots that they have to get. It's really, I mean, if you get like a new bird and you're kind of like leery about where it came from, it's always important to make sure that you get it checked before you bring it in with all of your birds. But there's no really like monthly checkups that you have to do when you bring your bird to the vet. It's really just if you see something wrong, if the bird's kind of hanging out the bottom of the cage more than it normally does, or if you just feel like they're sick. Normally, by the time a bird actually starts showing signs of being sick, it's probably very, very, very sick. They hide it for a really long time, and so it's important to get them to the vet as soon as possible if they're showing any signs of being sick. And again, that's just finding a local avian certified vet to kind of be your bird vet. Essentially. But Ellie's come on. Yeah. I have a pretty good group of birds though. They're all super, super nice and friendly and super playful. Especially Ellie. She'll yep. What you doing, Elbow? What you doing, Elbow? Tickle, 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 tickle. But you can see how social and just like hands-on they can be. I have a pretty good relationship with all my birds. I don't have kids, so these are pretty much my feathered children. I spend a lot of time with them. And ooh, you gonna show your wings, Coco? Look at that handsome boy. That's a handsome boy. Coco likes to show off. You can see how big he is, though. I mean, he's a pretty big bird. Huh. And he's the third largest out of the macaw species. So he's a green-winged macaw. The first is a hyacinth, being the largest, and then a Buffon's macaw, and then the green-winged macaw being the third largest. So they're a pretty big bird, but they're a gentle giant when it comes down to it. They're super, super friendly. Again, once the bird gets to know you and everything. They can bite. I'm not going to say that you'll never get bit. That's kind of one of the things with owning birds is you're going to get bit at least once, if not multiple times. I don't get bit very often, but every now and then I do get nipped when I'm not paying attention or reading the body language, letting me know that they don't want to be picked up or they don't want to get off my shoulder. I've had that actually just the other day. I had Oliver on me and he didn't want to get off. I was trying to force him off, and he just nailed my finger. It just finally healed, but it's just part of it. Another thing that people don't realize when they do get a bird is a lot of normal like kitchenware that you would get is actually super toxic to them. Any nonstick cookware has a Teflon coating on it, and when that Teflon coating is heated to a certain temperature, it actually produces this poisonous gas. And for us, our bodies can handle a little bit. When it comes to parrots, their bodies can't handle it. They don't have lungs like we do. They have these air sacs, and once those air sacs are damaged, they're damaged. They don't like regenerate cells in them very easily, and so it's really toxic to them, and they'll die within the day actually if they get exposed to the toxin. So you either have to get rid of all your nonstick cookware and get like either stainless steel, or even the copper ones are a little bit better, but a lot of people, I mean, obviously that can be kind of expensive to try to have to get rid of all of your cookware. So sometimes what people will do is if their bird's like when they're cooking, just have the bird totally separate from where the kitchen is, and then keep a fan on and keep like a window open or something, just keep the air ventilating, just to be safe. It is a super big issue, and I've known a lot of people who were not aware of that and have had birds pass away, so it's a pretty important part with owning a bird. Another one is like aerosols. Aerosols really aren't good for your bird. They're really not good for us or the environment or really anything. Aerosols are just horrible in general, but they're extra horrible when you have parrots, just because the fumes are pretty bad to them. I mean, basically anything that puts off a fume is going to be bad for your bird. It's even bad for your dogs, honestly, and your cats, your lizards, whatever you have. It's bad for your kids, and so you have to be careful with like candles. You can do like candle warmers. They're not as bad because they're not burning off chemicals, but candles are pretty bad. Any of the little Glade plugins, they're all kind of putting off a toxin that's not very good for the birds, so we recommend trying to stay away from those. Ellie, stop being a brat, please. Stop it. I'm going to go over kind of like some frequently asked questions that I get. One of the biggest ones is, how do you treat your bird not to scream? It is almost impossible to teach them not to scream. If you want a quiet bird, then you should get a stuffed animal as a pet, because it's literally impossible to teach your bird not to scream. There are some birds that are louder than others. I've babysat some birds that literally screamed the entire time that I had them. Mine are not like that. I have pretty well-behaved parrots. But like Coco is actually notorious for screaming whenever he thinks that we have food, or if we're in the kitchen and he thinks that we're cooking, he will scream until he gets food, just because he's pretty food motivated. But for the most part, it's just not rewarding bad behavior. Sometimes they'll scream and you'll be like, shut up, yell at them. They're wanting attention from you when they're screaming. And so the best bet to actually do is when your bird is screaming is just to ignore them, and hopefully that they'll stop. And then once they've quieted down, then go get them, or then go give them a treat, just to kind of reward the better behavior versus rewarding the bad behavior. And I kind of went over the biting stuff. I get asked that a lot, like how do you teach your bird not to bite? You don't. It's just kind of with the territory. You learn to read your bird a little bit more the longer you have them and the more comfortable you get with them. And you do build a bond with your bird. And so you will get bit less depending on your bird. Again, I have super nice birds. I hardly ever get bit. So I'm pretty lucky when it comes to that. Coco's bites, I mean, he looks big and terrible and frightening, but he's actually a big baby. I've been bit by a little bird worse than I've been bit by him. So, yeah, rah, 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 rah. He's a pretty good bird, though. I also get asked a lot, how do you teach your bird to talk, or how much does your bird talk? And it really just depends on the species. Almost all of my birds talk. I have a couple parakeets, and those don't talk, but all of my bigger parrots talk. The best known talkers are the African greys, and if anybody has read the story of Alex was a gray a scientist, and his owner, they had a great relationship, but did a bunch of different studies, and he actually understood the concept of zero, which is the only animal to do that. So it's kind of proven that the African greys are some of the smartest animals that we have. But he has over a 200-word vocabulary easily. I might have said this before in the video, but he says my name, he'll call me, he'll ask for specific things if he wants grapes or oranges, or he can whistle and sing, and he's amazing. Coco can do the same thing. They more talk when they're like kind of getting sleepy. Like Mowgli will go through all of his words and sounds like right before bedtime. That's when he starts like practicing. But Coco just depends on how excited he gets. If he's really excited, he'll talk and he'll play a little bit more and be like super animated. Right now he's just not really sure what's going on, so I'm just talking to a box to him, so I don't think he really understands. But if like people are here, he livens up quite a bit. He's pretty social, being around other people, and especially kids. He really likes kids. Birds are a pretty long-living animal. Coco can live up to be 60, 80 years old. Same with Mowgli. If, they have a perfect life, health-wise, have a good diet, don't get, crazy cancers or something weird happening, like crazy stuff normally happens when you do have animals. The littler birds, more like Ellie size, when she's down here on my lap, which is why I'm pointing down, she can live to be about 30 years old, which is still pretty good for a pet, considering dogs or cats, you're like lucky to get 15 years out of them. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that everybody lives about the same time I live, and so we'll just kind of go at the same time, so I don't have to try to find somebody to take care of them after I pass away. But it is something to keep in mind depending on your age, and if you get a younger bird, to make sure that you have somebody to be able to take care of it if something happened to you. So just kind of something to think about. I'm going to go get a couple of my other birds and kind of show you guys the different species and kind of what they look like and introduce them to you, because I love all my birds and they're super fun. So give me just a moment. Mowgli's tapping on the glass. This is Molly, though. She's an umbrella cockatoo. She's just an absolute sweetheart. I've had her for about 14 or 15 years now, and you can see that she does a little bit of feather mutilation. When we got her, it was when PetSmart could actually have bigger birds before they got banned not to, because they weren't taking care of them correctly. And so she had a crop infection, she had a crop burn, she had a ton of issues that were wrong with her when we got her, and so she chewed on her feathers previously. And then also she just doesn't do well in big crowds. She prefers some more like one-on-one attention, and so she just got really overwhelmed in the store, and she's got a lot of anxiety, and so when she gets kind of worked up, she chews on her feathers a little bit. But she's an absolute sweetheart. All she does, like, she's the one that, like, in the morning, and when we let her out, if I go back into bed, she'll actually crawl into bed and like come under the covers with you and cuddle. She's super, super, super sweet, and we love her. Huh, May? Huh, May? But you can kind of see she's got like the yellow underneath her feathers. Thanks everybody for stopping by and watching my video about my birds. If you have any questions, feel free to just leave them down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer as many as possible. But I hope you guys have a good day.